It's time to bring back Postman Pat.
Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat and his black and white cat. Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, he picks up all the post bags in his van.
He picks up all the post. Well, wouldn't it be nice if the Royal Mail did that? Because it's been fined £21 million by Ofcom, its third major penalty in as many years, for failing to meet its own delivery targets. Ofcom says the company delivered just 77% of first-class mail on time and 92% of second-class post, far below its targets, even after those were quietly lowered earlier this year. The regulator says the Royal Mail took insufficient and ineffective steps to fix the problem. Letters arriving weeks late, missed court summonses, even eviction notices delayed. Now, Ofcom is warning the fines will continue unless Royal Mail shows meaningful progress. But the situation may actually be worse than the figures suggest because of the way Royal Mail measures its own performance. All across the country, the final collection times on postboxes have quietly been moved to 9 a.m. and 7 a.m. on Saturdays, meaning if you post a letter after breakfast, it won't be collected until the next day. I went to investigate this in my local area of SW1. Well, the Post Office has been fined a record amount by Ofcom because its service is useless. But it's even worse than you thought. I thought I would demonstrate by trying to post a letter here in SW1. I've got a second-class stamp on it. Why? Because the first-class post is a con. You pay much more, and it doesn't get there anything like the amount of time it's meant to. It's not the next day. It's not much better than second class. It's just a routine bread and butter thank you letter. Let's go and try and find a postbox. This is the nearest postbox. It's just under the Victoria Tower, near the Houses of Parliament, lots of tourists, lots of offices nearby. So shall I put it in here? No, because the last collection Monday to Friday is 9 o'clock. That basically adds a full extra day to every delivery. Even the targets Royal Mail's failed to meet are a con. On Saturdays, 7 in the morning, you've got to have written your letters pretty early on Saturday to get the post. Let's go to the next nearest. Well, here we go. Effort number 2, the second nearest postbox. But once again, 9 a.m. All these postboxes used to have a last collection at 7 o'clock in the evening. They've taken a full 10 hours off the whole of the effective working day, and they've done it without telling anybody. It's all been done under the counter, so nobody knows that posting a letter takes a day longer, regardless of your stamp, regardless of the targets, and prices have gone up. It's an absolute con. Shall we try one more? Well, here's another go. Postbox in Smith Square. Actually one I remember using as a child when, yes, there was the 7 o'clock collection. You could send a first-class letter at 6:50 and it would arrive at its destination the next morning. Now, if you're not an early bird, your letter won't get there. No wonder nobody's writing letters anymore. The post office can't be bothered to collect them, and even then it delivers them late. It's an utter failure. Gloria in Ex-Chelsea Deo. At last, we've found a postbox. 5:30. I can send my letter, third time lucky. But what a decline in service in recent years. No wonder they've been fined by Ofcom. Not an organisation I'm always that keen on. Actually, it was fourth time lucky. I clearly can't count. The statistical fiddling helps the Postal Service appear to be closer to its targets, while the reality for customers is slower deliveries and longer waits. The Royal Mail accepts Ofcom's decision and says it's working hard to make sustained improvements with more staff, more training and support for delivery offices. But for customers who still rely on the post, from birthday cards to legal documents, confidence in Royal Mail is unlikely to improve unless collection times get better. But there is perhaps a solution. The great P.G. Woodhouse was famously said never to have bothered to post his own letters. Instead, he would write them, stamp and address the envelopes, and then throw them out of his window, trusting that the honest and public-spirited people of Britain would find them and kindly drop them in to the nearest postbox for him. He said, "Someone always picks it up, and it saves me going down 4 flights of stairs every time I want to mail a letter." As ever, let me know what you think, mailmog@gbnews.com. But now I am joined by former sub-postmaster Christopher Head. Christopher, thank you for joining me. And it does seem to me this change in collection times is the untold story about Royal Mail's recent decline, because you now have to post your letter so early that actually it's not a one-day service for first class, it's 2 days at best.
Look, it's been gradually in decline for many, many years. You know, when I was last in the post, I was back in 2015, a bit like what you said, that the last collection time for my branch and all the post boxes nearby were at the very earliest 5:30. And as you say, they've gradually, I think the last time it went to 3 o'clock and then 12 noon, now it's 9 o'clock in the morning. And you're paying substantially more. I mean, the price of the stamp has risen. I think it's well over £1.30 now for a stamp. And the services go in the opposite way.
And in London, you used to have a first post and a second post, and they said we're abolishing the second post, which was untrue, because actually they abolished the first post, and instead of getting post in the morning, it comes now about lunchtime.
Exactly. So you get, you're paying much more, but you're getting a much worse service. And this is I think we're seeing it across the thing of private sector companies that are making billions of pounds, and we look at them as it's a public service, and I think people demand and expect so much more, and probably deserve a lot more for what they're paying for that service.
And to be fair to them, the number of letters posted has declined very dramatically, obviously, as people are using email more. But I just wonder if they encourage that decline by allowing the cost to go up and the service to decline so rapidly, and therefore it really discourages people from using the post.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, the Royal Mail and most of the big companies are only focused on the most profitable aspects of their business, and that's obviously parcel delivery. So the letters just get put to one side, and this is what you're saying, that they're not interested. And I question whether Ofcom said they're going to keep finding Royal Mail, but to me, I read earlier on today, I think that Royal Mail will just build that into their cost base. It will just be another cost, because there's no other implications of it. They'll just say, okay, it's another 10 or 20 million pound fine every year, and we'll just continue on as normal. So unless the regulator is giving more teeth, we're not going to see much change.
All right. Well, Christopher, thank you very much for joining me. I will now go to my preternaturally perspicacious panel, Sarah Pachin and Kevin Craig. Kevin, let me come to you first. I mean, you're a businessman. In a business, if you want to improve things, you improve your service and you cut prices. The Royal Mail's gone about it exactly the wrong way, and I think has exacerbated and sped up the decline.
I think you're right. I mean, I think you may find that we all agree tonight. I'm really worried about the Royal Mail. I mean, over the last 10 years in business, I've noticed a plethora of ways that we just don't use it anymore in the way that we used to. The competition for particularly mass deliveries has increased. The price for a normal person of even first or second class post is extraordinary compared to what it was in the past, even adjusted for inflation. I think you might have been a little bit unfair when you said about the Royal Mail can't be bothered to do things. I think they're struggling in an existential crisis, to be honest. And I thought it was one of the most enjoyable items I've actually ever sat through with you, Jacob, which may be a low bar, but I felt it nonetheless, because it reminded us of what things used to be like. There was a service that was reliable the next day across our country. So I think the Ofcom fines, and again, it's good to see the regulator doing its job, as it does with many issues, whether it's the Royal Mail or errant broadcasters. And I think that here, we deserve better, and I'm very worried for the Royal Mail.
So it does seem to me they're getting their business strategy wrong, that the penny post came in because if you had a low charge and lots of deliveries, it was economic. We now have a system where they've still got all the infrastructure, they still employ all the postmen, they're delivering lots of parcels, but they're not using their system efficiently because they've deterred people from subscribing?
Well, clearly not. I mean, I come from very much a sort of market economics stance on these sort of companies. The fact is they clearly have their business model wrong. They are unable to compete at the moment. There's lots of factors at play, isn't there? I mean, I've got 2 children in their 20s. Trying to get them to write a thank you letter is something that this generation barely know how to construct a thank you letter, let alone then go and buy a stamp and go and post one like you were bravely trying to do in London. So I think the Royal Mail are up against that. It's much easier for this generation to click on Moonpig, and I'm sure there are many others, but, and send a card that way. if they even bother sending birthday cards. I mean, I love sending birthday cards, thank you cards, whatever. It's something that I was taught and brought up with. It's always polite to write a thank you letter, and I love doing it. But this generation, it's a quick text, isn't it? So I think the whole nature of the Royal Mail is changing, and I think that's something that they have to... It's a bit like when we talk about online shopping. You know, you can't put the genie back in the box. No. You have to adapt your business. What I would say is I would imagine, I've never done a study into the Royal Mail and how it's set up, but I would imagine it's fairly cumbersome. I would imagine we know it's fairly unionised, and therefore I think they're probably up against it in every way. Volumes are going down, their structure's not fit for the current day, and they're probably fighting unions. So I would imagine there's a new owner, isn't there?
There is a new owner.
Czech billionaire.
And I think the union issue is important. There are some old-fashioned practices in the post office.
So, look, this is where we diverge. First divergence of the evening between me and you both, which is that I think if you actually, and I've spent some time in previous campaigns with Royal Mail employees, there are fewer posties than there were in the past. And this is not the fault of the trade unions. In my view, this is actually about the evolution of customer requirements in modern society. And I don't think, at the moment, the Royal Mail has the answers, but the new investor is a guy with a record, as I recall. He likes to make money. So he's not in this for the philanthropic aspect. No. And I think, you know, I do hope and pray that a way is found to make it sustainable, but I wouldn't lay it at the door of the unions, because in fact there are many fewer posties than there were.
Yeah. The other thing, just to come back, you know, the cost of the price of a first-class stamp now, I think, is £1.70.
Shocking.
I mean, how did that happen? Yeah. And the second class is 87p.
But they're deliberately trying to price the first class stamp out of existence.
Yes. Yeah.
The ratio between it and second class is now so high.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't arrive on time. Why would anybody
Why would
bother?
you do it? And as I come back to the generation, the age of my children, £1.70 is half a cost of coffee or a Starbucks or whatever. You know, they're not going to pay that for a stamp anymore. No. Look at Christmas cards. You know, who, you know, I'm the sort of person that I don't anymore, I've stopped doing it, write 50 Christmas cards, say. How much is that going to cost in stamps, let alone the cards? Well, so you stop doing it. So it's a vicious circle, isn't it?
I used to do several hundred Christmas cards.
I'm sure you did. You're so popular, Jacob.
And I cut right back on them because the year before last, they didn't arrive until February. And not all of them, but some of them. Yeah. And you think, well, what's the point?
And the cost involved in that. I don't have several hundred friends, but I know I'm sure you do. But the cost involved in actually doing Christmas cards. So it's a downward spiral. Yeah. It's a vicious circle of decline for the Royal Mail. They have to change their model.
If you've got the capacity for large volume, you want to get the volume in, which means you make the price as low as possible. That's where I think they've made the fundamental error.
I agree.
And that if the price of stamps came right back down, then you incentivise people to produce it. And you've got the infrastructure there. So your marginal cost of the extra stamp is very low.
Yes.
Anyway, that's my
I totally
business
agree with you.
theory,
The whole model's wrong.
I'm happy to give to Royal Mail for free. And we've written to the Royal Mail for a comment on this specific issue. And sadly, they didn't respond by post, but sent an email, which meant, I suppose, we received it before the end of the programme. A Royal Mail spokesman said, "We acknowledge the decision made by Ofcom today, and we will continue to work hard to deliver further sustained improvement to our quality of service. A key area of focus and investment has been the detailed work ahead of full implementation of our new delivery model enabled by Ofcom's changes to the universal service. Where we have piloted universal services changes, we can see that our model is working with improvements in deliveries." Well, thank you very much to Christopher and indeed to my panel.